morning. We had ourselves a good old-fashioned projector outage today. So we have gone dark. We will not be communicating with the outside world, so come on in. And if you didn't get a piece of paper that's got some of the song lyrics on it, then make sure you grab one of those, because that's how you're going to know what we're going to sing. And then we're just going to, so pretend it's a hymnal, and we're just going to kind of go with an old-fashioned sing-along today. So will you stand to your feet this morning? And projector or no projector, we are going to lift our voices to the one and only who is worthy of our praise. Let's give him the glory today. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, let the earth hear his voice. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, let the people rejoice. Oh, come to the Father, through Jesus the Son, and give him the glory. Great things he has done. To God be the glory. Great things he has done. So lovely the world that he gave us his Son. your neighbor and pass the peace and the love and the joy of Christ around this church today.
Good to be in God's house this morning, amen? Amen. I'm glad that you're here as well. And I'm glad that you are not sick. So I've been hearing about a lot of people who are sick. And I'm glad that you're not sick. And some who were sick last week are not sick this week. Thank the Lord for that. So praise the Lord. So stay well, everybody. Do whatever you need to do to stay well. Well, it's exciting today that we have an opportunity, a wonderful opportunity again in the life of the church. And always an exciting point, as you all know, for as a pastor, to be able to, last Sunday we had baptism as Pastor Kyle was able to baptize his own daughter, little Lucy, last week, and that's always an exciting time in the life of the church. And today we get to dedicate a new baby to the Lord. And so I want to invite Anna and Tyrone and little Kyrie, Sebastian, and the grandmothers, if they would come, please. Stand before me. You face me. I'll have you faced in a little bit. In Matthew's Gospel, chapter 19, Jesus said, "Then little children were brought to Jesus for him to place his hands on them and pray for them. But the disciples rebuked those who brought them, and Jesus said to them, 'Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these.'" Tyrone and Anna, in presenting this child, little Kyrie Sebastian, for dedication this morning as we talk, it's more parents, because as much as we love little Kyrie, he doesn't know what's going on right now. So this is a statement for you all that signify not only your faith in the Christian religion, but also the desire that little Kyrie may early know and follow the will of God, that he would live and die a Christian and come into everlasting blessedness at the end of his life. And in order to attain that holy end, it will be your duty as parents to teach him to teach him early the fear of the Lord and to watch over his education that he isn't led astray, to direct his youthful mind to the Holy Scriptures and his feet into the sanctuary, to restrain him from evil associates, habits, as much as we can. And as much as in you lie, bring him up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And I already know that that's your desire because we've talked before. But I ask you this morning, will you endeavor to do so by the help of God? If so, answer the will. And I ask you, grandparents, on behalf of the extended family, and it's quite an extended family, I might say. It's always we're delighted. But I ask you all the same, that in helping Tyrone and Anna to raise little Kyrie Sebastian in the fear and admonition of the Lord, that he would grow up to live and die as a Christian. Will you endeavor to do all in your power to help them raise Kyrie in that way? If so, answer, we will. Now I ask you, the congregation, will you commit yourself as the body of Christ to support and encourage these parents, Tyrone and Anna, as they endeavor to fulfill their responsibilities to this child, Kyrie Sebastian, and to assist him by nurturing his growth towards spiritual maturity? If so, answer, we will. We will. Well, that's a great sound, isn't it? It's wonderful. Praise the Lord. Isn't he precious? He is. Yes, he is. Well, today, Father, we come to you. And we bring little Kyrie Sebastian before you. As Anna and Tyrone, you have blessed their lives, Lord, as you brought them together to establish their own home, and now you brought this little bundle of blessing into their lives. Lord, in this responsibility, their desire is to give him back to you. So here we are. Lord, I pray that you would watch over him. Would you set your angels to protect him and guard him? And may he soon know and come to the realization that you are his Lord and Savior, and he will give his life completely to you and live pleasing to you in everything that he can and does. Pray that you would be with Tyrone and Anna as they endeavor, Lord, to raise him and be the parents. And even through these days of sleepless nights and the struggle sometimes that it happens, Lord, would you just undergird them, I pray. Draw them closer together as you draw them close to yourself. And Lord, that little Kyrie will come to know you and know that they love you as well. And to know that there's a family of believers who surround him with love and care and grace. Yes. Lord, I just pray for this family, and especially now for little Kyrie Sebastian, as we dedicate him in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the blessed Holy Ghost. We give him to you. He's yours. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Well, I give you this little rosebud. It's as you watch this rose, you will take it home, you'll put it in a little vase, you'll watch it, it'll blossom and bloom, and it'll spread out. And then before long, these petals start falling off because it doesn't last very long. Just kind of a reminder of us that life is fragile, and God has given you a new life, and you get to watch him blossom and grow, and then to realize how fragile life really is, and what the responsibility is on your part to make sure that he's nurtured and grows. And there's a little packet in here to help this flower last as long as it can. It's called food. And you feed Kyrie Sebastian, and you watch him grow, and you realize that this little rose will be just a symbol of the life that you had before God. And so just take this as a reminder that this is your responsibility to raise this child, to know God, and to love him, and to love his people. And that's why we're here. And so I also have this certificate that stands as a reminder of this day, this occasion, that we have given Kyrie to the Lord. He belongs to God. And then added to that, our churches, we have let me just show the people, this is a little prayer quilt. Some of you know about our prayer quilt ministry. And this prayer quilt, you know that each of these knots that are tied in here are tied as they pray for Kyrie. This was made specifically for him. So we want to present this to you too as a physical reminder that there's a group of people, even though we may not say it often enough, that you know that you are loved and prayed for. Yes. And cared for. Yes. In your family. So, God bless you. What a delight. Turn around and show him off, and let's welcome him. Always an exciting time. Amen. Praise the Lord. And he didn't even cry. That's well, this morning, as Pastor Kyle has already mentioned, that the storm yesterday knocked out our computer talking to the projector or something, so we are doing it old-fashioned way. Is that all right? And so we're just blacking out. That's good thing. So today, all of our activities are back on this week, and the teams will be meeting tonight. Pastor Steve will be back. So today at 5 o'clock, the teams will be meeting. And then Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, the young at heart and anyone else who would like to, there is a dinner and movie at College Church. And the movie is about Phineas Brzee, pastor of the people, who Phineas Brzee is known as the founder for the Church of the Nazarene. And that cost is $7 a person. If you're interested, please see Pastor Candy or contact her and let her know that you would like to be a part of the group that goes on Tuesday night to that. And then the fundraiser, the youth fundraiser yard sale coming this weekend, Friday and Saturday, over at the teen house, the yard sale. If you have your items to bring, please have them here by the 18th, which would be Wednesday. So if you could get them here by then, that would be wonderful. And anybody who can come and help Pastor Candy and the teens as they give their time for that. And so, and we're using it as an opportunity also to clean out some things, because before long we're going to have new carpeting in here. You see some painting has already been done. We're changing some light fixtures. We're going to have a new welcome center that will be out there. So there's a lot of things that are happening here in the next month. You won't be able to recognize the place. It'll be we'll finally get rid of this wonderful, wonderful orange carpet, and we're looking forward to that. It's exciting. We're thankful for that. Also, the trunk or treat and amazing maze. And do you have an announcement to give about that today or not? Huh? Next week? Next week. All right, so our community outreach, October the 29th from 4 to 6 p.m. We'd like for you to donate some candy. There's a big barrel out in the foyer that's all decorated. You can't miss it. You can put your candy in there. We appreciate that. And we need some trunks. It means the trunk of your car. We need some trunks. If you'd sign up, please, out there in the foyer. There's a sign-up sheet. We'd like for you to do that. And we are offering again this year some free chili to our community, to everyone who can. So we need some donations of beans and tomatoes and cookies and cupcakes that go along with that.
Jalapeno.
And all right, Kurt, we'll let you can do that. And we'll also need some volunteers with that. So if you would let Pastor Barb know, or some of us know, that you were willing to volunteer to help with parking, the setup, serving the chili, and monitoring the maze to keep our kids safe. Sign-up sheets are out in the foyer as well, so we appreciate your attention to that. Thank you very much. Our ushers, if you will come please at this time for our morning tithes and offerings as we give liberally and cheerfully unto the Lord. Amen. Father God, thank you for this wonderful opportunity to gather in your house to worship together. And then as a part of our worship, to be able to give back to you what you already own. Lord, I pray that you would bless this offering, bless those who give, those who have not to give. May you multiply the offering for the furtherance of your cause and your kingdom's sake. Lord, we give it to you. May you add your blessing in Jesus' name. Amen.
Let me read you something from Ezekiel chapter 36. It's just 3 verses. And then we're going to talk about it just briefly. And I will give you a new heart, and I will put a new spirit in you. I will take out your stony, stubborn heart and give you a tender, responsive heart. And I will put my spirit in you so that you will follow my decrees and be careful to obey my regulations. And you will live in Israel, the land I gave your ancestors long ago. You will be my people, and I will be your God. Francis Dixon did a study on this scripture a while back, and he determined that God wants our hearts for 4 reasons. Number 1, he wants to exchange them. I just read, I will take out your stony, stubborn heart, and I will give you a tender, responsive heart. He doesn't try to fix the broken one. He gives you a new one. Number 2, he wants to empower our hearts. I just read, I will put my spirit in you so you will follow my decrees and be careful to obey my regulations. He gives us the new heart, empowers us to use that new heart. He doesn't control us. We have a choice, and he equips us to make the right one. Number 3, he wants to establish our hearts. I just read, and you will live in Israel, the land I gave your ancestors long ago. This is the promised land, a land flowing with milk and with honey. It represents wholeness. It represents peace. Our hearts, they tend to wander. They don't want to rest. He offers to establish us and take away our fear and our perpetual calamity. And number 4, he wants to enrich our hearts. I just read, you will be my people and I will be your God. If the God of the universe, of all creation, is your God, imagine how rich you are. He gives back in abundance to those who give their hearts. So you may not feel like you have much to give today. But will you give your heart? Will you give yourself over to him? He can do so much with your resources. So when I say give your heart, that's not an excuse to stop tithing or whatever. That's saying that if you give your whole heart, a natural fruit of your new, empowered, established, enriched heart and life is the giving of everything else that comes with it. It starts with your heart. So let's sing this morning about giving our heart to God.
Use my heart, Lord. Use my heart, Lord. Use my heart, Lord. Speak what is true.
Let's sing that together. all lead us out loud, but we are obviously all invited to lift our voices in prayer. And this room, the many lives and souls represented in this room also represent a huge, wide look at the reasons we go to our knees before God. Because some of us are in desperate need of forgiveness today. And some of us are in desperate need of healing. Some of us have hurt hearts, and some of us have hurt bodies, and some of us have hurt bank accounts. Some of us have relationships that we wish could be mended, but we're not sure how. There's an endless number of reasons for us to get on our knees before the Creator of the universe. It's just a few of them, but we're going to sing that chorus one more time, and the altars are going to be open. You are welcome to come for whatever reason you have heavy on your heart today. Or if you know someone who has something heavy on their heart, and you would kneel in intercession for them, then the altar is a very appropriate place to do that. So we're going to sing one more time about giving our heart and giving our lives to God, and then I'll lead us in prayer. The altars are open. Please come.
Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true.
Here's our lives.
Here's my life, Lord. Here's my life, Lord. Here's my life, Lord. Speak what is true. Speak what is true. Speak what is true.
God, we are listening for your truth in our lives. And your truth will come in many different ways. We're seeking different kinds of truths. But you help us to be wise and be discerning as we open ourselves up to you. While we have a role to play in that conversation, and why we are not just bystanders watching our life go by as you direct us, we also don't want to get in the way and attempt to control outcomes that we have given over to you. So you help us to figure out what our co-laboring role is with you, so we understand we understand the dynamics of our relationship with you as it pertains to our own lives. And that's not an easy thing to come up with. And for many of us, that probably takes years and years and years of living in relationship with you as we slowly figure out what that looks like. But fortunately for us, you are patient with us. And you recognize that we are flawed and we are human and we need time, and you give us your grace and mercy over and over again. Where would we be without your grace and mercy? So I pray for a congregation of people today who, on varying levels, desire to give our hearts to you. And some of us are really far down that journey. And others are just kind of taking the first steps, and others are kind of tentatively kind of feeling it out, deciding if that's what we want to do with our life. But we recognize that you are willing to exchange our hearts to take away our broken one and give us a new one. We recognize that you are willing to empower us, not control us, but give us the tools necessary to live a life for you and to actually make a real difference in the world. Not just a quiet, nice little Christian life where we sit in our houses and we listen to Christian radio and we just kind of let the world go by, but where you actually empower us and equip us to get out into the world and change things. And if we're not doing that, will you convict us? Make us uncomfortable until we are willing to go out into the world and begin to be the change that we want to see. You do want to establish our hearts. You want to give us a home. You want to give us peace and hope that only come from giving our heart completely over to you. And when our hearts wander, that means they're just looking for places to rest. And we try to rest in all of these different things that give us comfort for a moment, but then the bottom falls out and we are left wandering again. And it is only in you that we find establishment where we can put down roots and we can stay. And that peace and that hope, they don't go away. And even when life is tumultuous, and even when it's really, really hard, when you have established us in your kingdom, then we know that your peace and hope are here to stay. You are our God. We come before you today, as we mentioned before, as the only one worthy of our worship and the only one worthy of us getting on our knees before you. Be with your people. When I say your people, I don't just mean this church, but I mean the church down the street who also are worshiping. I mean the other Nazarene churches on the district, and I also mean the other Nazarene churches in the country and in the world, but I also mean the Baptist churches and the Presbyterian churches and the Catholic churches where other believers are gathering and are lifting their voices in praise to you today. Will you empower your church, your global church, your church universal, to come together? Forget the little petty things that divide us. But we recognize that if we can come together as your church, we saw what your church was able to do in the world in the earliest days of its establishment. And we know that you can empower us to do the same thing in this day. So will you bring your church together? We love you and we look to you. fill us and empower us. Amen.
Pastor, while people are going to their seats, I won't take but 30 minutes of your time.
Children are dismissed. Pastor John fills in for Pastor Bart. Sick this morning.
John and I are so grateful for this church. And we were so blessed that the church honored you last Sunday. It brought back many happy memories. But you see, an old pastor and his wife are still honored every Sunday here at this church. We come to the front, and there are the gentlemen there. These wonderful men open our door, get our buggies, thank you, out, open, and get us in here to our seats. And then when the church is out, there's our car, motor running, doors open. They won't let us touch our walkers after we sleep in the car. And if we're late, they serve us breakfast late. That's kind of tough, and I don't want to make our helpers late. But anyhow, we are thankful, so very thankful. I go home and think about it, and John and I talk about it, how wonderful it is to be in a place like this. And of course, John and I will be in glory when you are where we are. And I hope that you and Susie get the same treatment.
Thank you so much. Well, I do invite you this morning, turn in your Bibles or whatever you have your scripture on device. If you would turn to Matthew's Gospel, chapter 22, and you're probably saying to yourself, when is he ever going to get through Matthew? Well, we're in chapter 22. We'll get there sooner or later. So if you will hold your Bibles open to Matthew 22, beginning of verse 15. But we'll get back to that in just a moment. So just hold on to that if you will. Keep it available, because we will get to it here briefly. But shall we recite our motto together? Now that you can't have it on the screen, you'll have to remember what it is. So this will be a great test for all of us, right?
Silence.
All right, all together. Heavenly Father, I give you permission to speak through me, to do whatever you want with my life. I trust the leadership of your Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen. Good. Well, hey, we can probably get that off. Fantastic. Well, now you just have to use your imagination, because you won't have any slides to go along with, whatever pictures I have to go along with my visual telling. So you'll have to use your imagination this morning. But I want to start by saying, late one night in Washington, D.C., a mugger wearing a ski mask jumped out into the path of a well-dressed man and stuck a gun in his side. Said, "Give me your money." Well, tell him I'll be late for dinner, probably. So the mugger stuck the gun in his side. "Give me your money," he demanded. Indignant, the affluent man replied, "You can't do this to me. I'm a U.S. congressman." "Well, in that case," the robber replied, "give me back my money." The infernal revenue service, in one form or another. They've always been with us, haven't they? Well, you know the story. The Pharisees were concerned about Jesus' growing popularity. They were worried about it. You know, I mean, this guy's getting more attention than we are. Something's wrong here. We've got to do something about this. They were concerned about Jesus' growing popularity. And they rightfully regarded him as a threat to the orthodoxy of the day. And so they were always looking for ways to expose him as a charlatan or a fraud, or paint him as a revolutionary who was a threat to the government. We must do away with it. So that's the setting. Here we pick it up, Matthew chapter 22, verse 15. One day they sent their disciples to try to trap him. And they began with some very high-sounding flattery. Has that ever happened to you? Maybe you're the one doing the flattery. But pick verse 16, they said, "Teacher," they said, we know that you are a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are." Oh. Now, just about anyone but Jesus would probably be seduced by such high praise. Jesus, a man of integrity, a man who teaches the truth regardless of what others might think about him. Yes. And high praise coming from the Pharisees, no less. That was the bait. That was the bait. They were setting him up. And now for the trap. Look at it, verse 17 in chapter 22. They said, "Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not?" Well, this must have seemed like the perfect ploy to the Pharisees. I mean, would Jesus play to the crowd and encourage disobedience to Rome? Such boldness would have won him followers, of course, but at the expense of pitting himself against the Roman Empire, Roman government. So if on the other hand, he sided with Rome, he would alienate those who despise the outsiders who rule over them. So the Pharisees couldn't lose, and Jesus couldn't win. Right? They baited him, set him up for a trap. But Matthew tells us, however, we pick it up at verse 18 and 19 of chapter 22, that Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said to them, "You hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax." And so they brought him the denarii. Verse 20. He asked them, "Whose image is this? And whose inscription is on this coin?" "Well, Caesar's," they replied. Then he said to them, "So give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." When they heard this, they were amazed. So they left him and went away. May God add his blessing to his word. Thanks be to God. Amen. So, give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, says the master. Do we have any choice? Huh? Do we have any choice? It kind of reminds me of the story that Patrick Duché tells about a man on vacation in Mexico who was strolling along outside his hotel in Acapulco. And he heard a woman screaming as she knelt down in front of this small child. And the man understood enough Spanish to realize that this little boy had swallowed a coin. And so he ran and he seized the child, grabbed the little child by the heels, and the man held him up and gave him a few shakes. Suddenly, an American quarter dropped to the ground. "Oh, thank you, sir," said the woman. You seem to know just how to get it out of him. "Are you a doctor?" "No," he said, "I'm with the IRS. We feel that like that a lot of times, don't we? Years ago, there was a trial of the son of a U.S. congressman. The young man had been charged with tax evasion. The judge showed very little mercy. Our tax system depends upon voluntary compliance, the judge said. Therefore, we must send a signal to other tax cheaters. So the son of this congressman was sent to jail. You might be surprised, or maybe you have forgotten, to learn that we actually do have a voluntary tax system in our government. Don't look, y'all are just looking at me like a mule looking at a new gate or something. You're like, what? It's true. We actually have a voluntary tax system. Now, try telling that to the IRS the next time you're audited or go pay your taxes. But giving back to Caesar is really no problem. We're used to it, right? I mean, if the government needs your house if they need your house moved in order to build a road, you might as well start looking for a new one. Because they'll get it. And if Congress reinstates the draft, start packing your old duffel bag, because what Caesar wants, Caesar gets. And most of us have no problem with that, or not anything that we'll do about it. We may not like paying taxes, but for the most part, we're happy with the kind of government we have, right? And we're really grateful to pick up the tab, within limits, of course. It's kind of the way it is. We've grown accustomed to it. In fact, it reminded me, comedian Jackie Mason once said that everyone should pay their income tax with a smile. He said, I tried it once, but they demanded cash. But you might be interested to know that when the federal income tax was signed into law back in 1913, it was for 1% of the average person's income. 1%. And a senator, actually speaking in opposition to the bill, said, well, if we allow this 1% foot in the door, at some future date, it might even rise to 5%. Wow. Well, how about 35%, depending on your tax bracket today? And that doesn't include city and state taxes. So, we grumble and we complain, but still we get back to Caesar, partly out of a sense of duty, and partly out of a sense of fear. And we do. And life goes on, right? The great American dream. But giving back to God, now that's a different matter, isn't it? In fact, as soon as I said that, your eyes went, oh, really? Giving back to God, it's quite a different matter. And let me ask, why do we give back to God? Why do we do that? Why do we gather here and make it a part of our worship every week? To give back to God. Well, that's a wonderful question. I'm really glad you asked that. Let's try to answer that, shall we? Number one reason, of course, is out of gratitude for all God has done for us. It's out of gratitude. We're not rich people. Well, maybe one of you are. One or two of you. Most of us, we're not rich people, but most of us have been blessed in wonderful ways. And we want to say thank you, to tell God we love Him. Amen? Amen. I was reading a story not long ago. Pastor Adam Hamilton, who's the pastor of Church of the Resurrection, United Methodist Church in Leewood, here, told a story about a camping trip that he took with his family in the Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming several years ago. And the trip just happened to coincide with his birthday. It fell along the same time with his birthday. So when they were done setting up their camp, Pastor Hamilton explained to his two daughters that they could have $20 each to spend the 3 days they were there. So the girls, in all of excitement, dragged him toward a gift shop that was just right beside their campsite. And his daughter Rebecca spied a baseball cap, and she instantly picked it up and tried it on. She said, "Well, what do you think, Dad?" She had some very curious eyes toward him. "Well, you look pretty in it, honey," Pastor Hamilton said, but that hat costs $20. And that's all you have. And you won't have any more money to spend the next 2 days. "But Dad," she said, "all I want is this hat, and I don't really care if I don't have any more money to spend." Pastor Hamilton said he tried all he could to talk his 10-year-old daughter out of the idea of buying that ball cap. The more he tried, the more resolute Rebecca became. Some of us parents know what that's like, right? So exhausted, Pastor Hamilton finally caved in. "Honey," he said, "you can buy that cap, but you're not getting any more money until 3 days' time is up," as he shoved the $20 bill at Rebecca, and she instantly used the money to buy the hat. But before going back to their camp, Pastor Hamilton took his two daughters for a walk, and then they sat on a beach near the lake to watch the sunset. "Dad," Rebecca said, tapping on her dad's shoulder, "here is my birthday gift for you," she said as she handed him the hat. "Happy birthday, Dad. I love you." Pastor Hamilton said that he sat on the bench, he took her in his arms, and he started to cry. And he said that cap is among his most treasured possessions. His most often worn cap to this day, because every time he wears it, he thinks of Becca's sacrifice for him. And all these years later, it still touches him to think about how his little girl gave up all her spending money because she wanted to tell her daddy she loved him. That's how God looks at our acts of generosity, my friends. When we share with God, our gifts are a way of saying, "God, I'm returning to you a portion of what I have to say thank you and that I love you. So I'm giving back to you." Well, that's the first reason we give back to God, out of a sense of gratitude for all God has done for us. But there's a second reason we give back to God. Number two, it's because we recognize that everything we have belongs to God. Yes. In the first place. Everything we have belongs to God in the first place. The psalmist said in Psalm 24, verse 1, he says, "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it," writes the psalmist. "The world and all who live in it is the Lord's." Leadership expert John Maxwell tells about a certain congressman who took his son to McDonald's one day. And the congressman bought a large order of fries and a Coke, and he and his son went and sat at a small table not too far away from the window to savor their tasty snack. And after settling down, the father stretched his hand out to take a fry out of the large fry box. But his son pulled the fries toward himself and covered the fries with his hand, blocking his dad's attempt to gain a fry. Well, with resignation, the father said very quietly, "It's all yours, son. It's all yours." The father looked through the window and he wondered to himself, as I think a lot of us have probably wondered some of these same things, like, could it be that my son has forgotten who bought those fries in the first place? Doesn't my son realize that I don't need his fries? I can go get my own. decided not to give him any. Why did he fail to see that all I wanted was to share a couple of fries with my son? Does it bring back some memories for you? It was at that point, after he was wondering that, the congressman came to realize something that most of us do. That we are all tempted to act in the same way as his son in our relationship with God. Because just like his son, we end up forgetting that God owns all the blessings we thought were ours. And we selfishly deny God the portion of the blessings that rightfully belong to him. Everything in this world belongs to God. We are only stewards or managers of God's wealth. Amen? Amen. I saw a couple of heads nod, yes, but I don't know that we all really buy into that. Everything in this world belongs to God, and we are only stewards or managers of God's wealth. Josh Harris, writing on the internet. Everything on the internet is true, right? But he notes, and I can back it up, that the word steward actually comes from a Greek word that refers to someone who managed a household. Someone who managed a household. In the Greek culture, if a person was wealthy and had a lot of money and possessions, they would use a steward to manage their household. This person wasn't the owner, but they were empowered to act on the owner's behalf. Josh Harris says it's kind of like Bill Gates. You know who Bill Gates is, right? One of the wealthiest men in the world, the wealthiest person in the U.S. anyway. And Josh Harris says that he was remembering 20 years ago when Bill Gates was worth only $5 billion. 20 years ago. That he hired a man by the name of Michael Larson to manage his money. And people jokingly called Larson the Gates Keeper. Because he has final say on every financial matter. He is given full control of Bill Gates' money and investments, and his whole job is to be a good steward of the money he is entrusted with. And he uses the money on behalf of Mr. Gates to benefit him and do his work. These days, I just read this week, Bill Gates kind of set a new record, actually. His worth has gone up to over $90 billion. And at a party recently, he said that he has complete trust and faith in Michael Larson. The money isn't his, but he has been given control over it for a purpose. Of course, Bill and his wife Melinda Gates, they have themselves proven to be good stewards as they, through their foundation, serve humanity through billions of dollars of bequests. Do a lot of wonderful things. But it just reminds us, nothing truly belongs to us. Nothing. Nothing truly belongs to us. We are mere stewards of that which is God's. But here's the most thrilling thing about giving back to God, number 3. God takes what we give Him and multiplies it to do far more than we can even imagine. God takes what we give Him, and multiplies it to do far more than we can even imagine. That is the message of the story of the little boy. You remember who gave the master the tiny gift of the fishes and the loaves, with which Jesus fed thousands of people? That's the message. Because that is what always happens when people offer up gifts to the master. He blesses it, multiplies it, and does far more than we can even imagine we can do with what we give. It's like something that happened last summer in the Olympics in Rio. In fact, Embry Roberts told about it recently on the Today Show. The story was about a Polish track and field athlete named Piotr Machalowski. I can't even say his name right. I'll just call him Peter. Piotr is his name. But Peter says he can still remember the overflowing feeling of gratitude he experienced as he waved his silver medal on the podium of the Rio Olympics. He said, I never imagined winning a silver medal while I prepared hard for the Olympic Games. Peter posted on his Facebook account, I did everything by the book, but gold refused to come my way. And instead of feeling angry, an overwhelming feeling of gratefulness has taken over me thanks to my silver medal. Coming in second in the men's discus throw, however, gave Peter an opportunity to show his gratitude in a very special way. Because at the same time, the mother of Oleg Zemansky, a 3-year-old boy, was suffering from a deadly form of eye cancer, contacted Peter shortly after the Rio Olympics. Oleg needed surgery to remove the cancer from his eyes. At a price tag of about $126,000, however, Oleg's mother simply couldn't afford it. So Peter instantly took interest into the little boy's case, and he decided to auction off his silver medal to raise money for the surgery. After months of fundraising, in his fundraising efforts, however, Peter's silver medal only attracted about $19,000. Nothing near what Oleg needed for the surgery. But then something of a miracle occurred. 2 Polish businessmen stepped forward and volunteered to pay off the rest. And so, in all the excitement, Peter took to his Facebook page and posted, I feel really elated. Our efforts have finally paid off, and now Oleg can have his eyes treated. I really feel fulfilled. Wow. And he ought to feel fulfilled. I mean, what greater joy can a person experience than that of being responsible for saving a child's life? Wonderful feeling. Just to show that when we give to God, God takes our gift, however small or big, whatever it is, God takes it and multiplies it to do far more with it than we can ever imagine. Ever. And what better use could you put it to today? And you remember Christ's words further on in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 25, verse 40, when he said, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So whenever you give to the church and its various ministries, you are showing your love for God. So, why do we give back to God? It's a great question. We do it out of gratitude for all God's done for us and because we love Him. We give because everything already belongs to Him, and we are just but stewards or managers of His bounty. And we do it because we know that God will take what we give to Him and will bless it and cause it to go further than we can possibly imagine. So, give to Caesar? We don't have much choice, do we? Give unto God? What a wonderful privilege. What a wonderful privilege. My dear friend and fellow pastor Joel Atwell says, I think it can be safely said that we never reflect the character of God more than when we give. said we can give without loving. And we give for so many reasons. We give for recognition, we give for manipulation, we give for leverage, and many other things. So we can give without loving, but it's impossible to love without giving. In one way or another, love always compels us to give. So give unto Caesar. You don't have a choice. Give back to God. That's our privilege.
Amen.
May God help us. May God help us to take His word to heart. And to know why we do what we do. Let's pray. Dear God, our Father, thank you for your word and for how it speaks to us. Earlier this morning, this building stood cold and closed and silent. And now it has been warmed by the fire and heat of gathered people that have given warmth to the air, to the Spirit. And now the unlocked doors have offered an open invitation for those who seek this sanctuary and to the casual passersby. And now the exchanges of greetings have merged into music of instruments and voices as we make joyful noises to our God. The cold, closed, silent building has become a place of worship and learning and a warm, welcoming home to all who enter. And we've been reminded this morning that we have an infinite and priceless capacity to love and to serve. And yet it is a fragile gift that takes careful handling if it's to be offered whole to the one who reaches out to accept it, to receive us. Our gifts can be battered about by the rough and tumble ways of the world. They can get crushed beneath the weight of selfishness. They can get misdelivered through spiritual inattention. But still, Lord, through our worship and in our common lives, we are able to take steps to make sure that the fragile gifts are yet given. We can wrap them carefully with prayer and faithfulness. We can tie them together with bright commitment and strong bonds of fellowship. We can address them clearly to God. So as we give ourselves, we offer a present fit for the Christ in whose name we gather. So, merciful God, from the compassion and generosity that well up within us, draw out of us offerings that become as life-giving water. To those who thirst for justice and peace, and for spiritual guidance and freedom from want, may our gifts bring refreshment and sustenance. Make our lives conduits for your moving Spirit, I pray. And direct our actions to deliver the Spirit's flow. So, Lord, we sang earlier, here's our heart. Here's our life. Speak what is true. So we offer ourselves. And I pray that you would accept our offerings and our words of prayer as grateful outpourings of a revived and thriving faith. That we would live out our life of thanks to you. We ask this in the name of the risen Christ. Amen. Would you stand, please, and receive the benediction this morning? Thank you for taking time to give back to God an hour of your time. time to worship, giving back to Him, offering ourselves. And now, the real test begins. Do we continue to offer ourselves as we leave the doors of this place? That's our challenge. That's what He's calling us to do. Because it's so easy when we gather with like-minded folks and gather in a place where we're all together and the Spirit of God stirs us together. It's so easy to say, oh yes, we love and we give and we serve. But when the rubber meets the road, how do we act? How do we live? So people of God, persist in the faith. Expend your talents in costly commitment. Be lavish with love. And the grace of God will flow upon your understanding and set your spirits free. Yes. And may the peace of Christ be with you all.
Also with you.
Thank you. God bless you. You are dismissed.